Yeah, okay to get going. So I'll just give you a little bit of context, really. So I'm Angela, and I've lived in Wigan all my life. And then just before the pandemic started, I decided that I wanted to get more involved in my own community where I lived. And I've been particularly worried about my town of Wigan since the Brexit vote. And I'd seen an awful lot of division. So I was worried about the division. I was worried about the impact of austerity, and I was worried about how much wealth and people were being exported from where I live and being looked after outside of the area for extortionate amounts of money with no better outcomes. And I felt that we could do that better ourselves in our town. So I'd had a conversation with the council and with an assistant director about developing cooperatives and community wealth building principles in the area that I live. And then we got the pandemic, and it seemed to be like a real opportunity within a tragedy, with to look at how we could use that to start bringing people together more, and also to think about what it is that we could do together in the longer term. So that's the kind of context of it. And the ward in which I live has got about 12,000 people in it, and it's split into three areas. One that's a big local authority housing estate that people say they have never been able to get in. One that's got a middle bit that's got a history of people owning their own houses, and then another bit which is mainly rented accommodation and housing of multiple occupancy and hostels. And within that, there's probably about 20 to 25 smaller communities. If we looked at a community of housing linked to perhaps a bit of green space where people could come together. So that's the kind of area that I live in. And we definitely, when we wanted to take this approach, so I am an ABCD like practitioner. I do training in that. So we wanted to start with like what we'd got really, what is it that we can do ourselves, and what could we do with a bit of help, and then what do we want other people to do for us, to kind of go back to that basics. So we started very much right at the beginning of the pandemic with an invitation to everybody to join in and come together, and we connected 112 streets and had before we went down into lockdown, and we tried to do an approach. Not every street did this, but we tried to do an approach where we invited everybody in, and then we looked at who was missing. Then we looked at what did we know about the people who were missing, who did they already have connections to, and then we looked at who was already buddying with them. So like now in my street, there's probably about 3 different groups. There's the phone group, there's the WhatsApp group, there's 3 different communities within my street of 44 houses. And then we looked at, right now we know that we're connected, what have we got? So what are the skills that we've got in each street? So that we knew what we could rely on if we needed it. Was there an electrician? Was there an hairdresser who could perform haircuts at 3 metre distance? Bakers, and looking at what everybody could offer and contribute. And Emma, there at the top, she was the woman behind our setting up our Facebook group, which it started, I think, we had about 609 members within a couple of weeks, but we're now up to 1,400 members. And then a big WhatsApp group. And we also were very aware that there's an awful lot of people in the neighbourhood we live in who don't have access to the internet or don't use the internet. So we used or don't use WhatsApp. So we used our hour exercise each day in our network of street networkers or street connectors to check in with people throughout the pandemic. So the idea was that every street looked after itself. And then we had a group of people and a group of neighbours who offered to help in other streets that weren't as well connected, so that everybody had somebody to rely on. And we really were kind of asking the council to slow down a little bit and let us develop this neighbourhood response, because we called it hungry pause. There was all this food coming in from about in the area, and we wanted to kind of initially help neighbours to think, actually, we don't need permission to do this. There was a bit of a like, can we do this? Can we just help each other out at the beginning? So we took some stuff online as well, straight away, with a couple of Zoom licenses, and had socials, coffee mornings, mindfulness groups. Dilys, who's 93, set up Dilys Phone Buddies. We helped her set that up because she wanted to, she'd been driving a car every day, out and about and going everywhere before the pandemic, and she wanted to get involved. And then through looking at skills and interests, we had street libraries on about 20 of the streets, the doorstep chats, bingo. A lot of streets had bingo on a Thursday evening. Performers, they all came out. Wedding singers, all kinds of stuff. Children were making a lot of farms and little kind of nature projects and sharing that with each other across the streets. And we had a small business Sunday, so we compiled a list across the area of people that we might need to help us, like electricians and plumbers, and people doing cake businesses. Actually, we really helped to keep the money within our local neighbourhood. And then we started treasure mapping. So we started to explore what have we got across the area, and not just what have we got, what are people passionate about, and what would they be interested in getting involved with other people. And some of those we took online, so we was able to form a history group. And the Dilys Phone Buddies came out of people wanting to develop friendships. People were interested in food and growing, and football and fixing, and all those, actually, apart from the football stuff, have got going. And so we've created 4 or 5 new associations that we didn't have in the area before, which are an important point of democracy, really. The associations really are plural of a citizen. And we didn't really have any heroes. We had no leaders. We tried to keep it as flat as we were. There was 5 women, like, kind of behind it, but no one was burnt out because we shared the load. And there was a massive increase in caring for each other and sharing and giving, borrowing, lending, which has carried on and sustained, which has been lovely to see. And also, our ward had the least number of referrals across the whole borough to emergency services, because we looked after each other. It was markedly, noticeably different because we weren't going out, we were looking at what we had in. And then because we knew there was like some interested in gardening, like when we kind of could go out last July, we took 4 chairs and sat outside the post office for a few weeks on a Monday and just chatted to people as they, seeing how they were doing, how they'd found lockdown, what they were missing and what they'd like to do together. And the garden, community garden, grew out of having a chat about lemon dip drizzle cake with James, who wanted to bake us some cake after week 3, when we were still sat on the chairs outside the post office. He wanted us to bring us a piece of cake. So we said to James, surely there must be a better place to eat cake together here than here. So he took us down to the garden, and which was really overgrown. It was massively overgrown, and connected us with the people who used to be involved with it. And also we then connected with the people in the group who wanted to be involved in it. And over summer we reclaimed it. And just as we were about to eat some of James's lemon drizzle cake together, we went back into lockdown. So we did a community bulb planting event to uh, remember all those who died in our area, but also bulbs for hope for spring. And we've just got some money from local connections. So local people have been making those library and sitting benches and bringing the benches back to life. So that we're ready to go with that. So that's a new association that grew, is the garden, and then also the food pantry. And the food pantry has grown out of our out of people's interest in food waste and food poverty. So it's linked to our junk food recycle project, but we also supplement it with food from the local farm, so that way there's as little stigma attached to it as possible. And it's actually become a community centre. So when we can, we'll be starting with 6 chairs from after eat sat outside, so people can stop and have a chat, and it can become a camarados, a little bit of a hanging about space. But the people who are involved in that want that to become a community business, so we're looking at how we can develop that into a local shop, which is one of the reasons we've had to think about our structure and how we kind of regulate and manage ourselves. So we've grown to 1,400 members online, and then we've got about 400 who are linked to the pantry. So that's like a fifth of the ward that we've reached so far who were involved with us. And then we've got horrific statistics around domestic abuse in Wigan, across the whole of Wigan. So we've got some cash from the local Neighbourhood fund to do some stuff around International Women's Day, and we brought together women to plan this. And so all the sessions and all the activities were hosted by women who live in the area. Apart from the poetry one, that was by Newham Poetry Group, Sonny from Newham Poetry Group. But as a result of that, actually, we've now got a poetry group that meets once a week. But we discovered that we had Belle, who's 9, and she's the 7th best street dancer in Europe and the 13th in the world. And her and her mum ran a workshop. So we had closed workshops for women on the Saturday, and then open workshops for the community on the Sunday, where our local bakers were demonstrating how to make American pancakes, and Victoria was running a workshop around bees and wildflower and rewilding your garden. And we had 1,500 people tune in across the weekend. And so Victoria's group has grown out of it, and she's grown a little charity called Give It a Grow. So we're looking at how we rewild the whole neighbourhood, and we've talked to the council. We've been having a look at the budget and what they spend, and we've said if we can reduce fly tipping and the amount of skips that you buy in this area, then can we have 50% of the savings of the budget next year, so that we can set up a participatory budgeting fund whereby neighbours could decide how they wanted to spend that money themselves. So we're just in the process of agreeing that with the council, and becoming an area actually where we start to really look at ward level budget and how much money is spent in our area. We think we could help them make a big saving in children's services, where we've currently got a 32% re-referral rate. So we're interested in like really diving down local. So we have got some cash from Lankella to do We Hear You, and talking about, not just talking with women about what we do about abuse, but talking about the community and why we accept it, and what is the function of a neighbour, and what is the function of a neighbourhood, and why are so many people around here hurting each other, and what are we prepared to do about it ourselves. And all this chatting, we've really tried to create space, particularly on the Facebook group, whilst we've been apart, where we can talk about things that sometimes we might not always agree on, and try and talk, agree to disagree about things too. But that's led to people really being interested in taking on more responsibility and ownership of our patch. So we agreed last week, we had somebody, a clerk of a parish council, come and talk to us about the pros and cons of it. So we're now starting that process of exploring whether it's something we want in our area. Do we want a parish council or do we want a neighbourhood plan? But we're definitely going to go through one of those two processes, even if it might take us a couple of years to get there. And we've also got some money from Awards for All to do a project called Share Stories and Grow Power, and celebrate what we've achieved together this year, make a film about neighbourliness, and also a living eulogy for one of our loved members of the community. But it will also, we're looking at the 7 functions of community, which are very linked to like donut economics, really, and starting to think about what kind of community do we want to live in, and what we're prepared to do ourselves, and what do we want others to do for us. So that's the next stage, and that'll take us till September. So we've got a budget to take these half a dozen chairs around bumping spots and to community groups, and just start having some conversations around the economy, around climate, around safety, around the things that are important to us, and just getting a bigger understanding of what people think. And I suppose that's kind of what drew me into getting involved with the Centre for Welfare Reform as well, at the beginning of the pandemic, and around the neighbourhood democracy movement, because what I learned quite early on was that it was giving us some power to our elbow to be connected to something a bit bigger than us, particularly with some of the early resistance that we was encountering from the local council and from the local politicians. So, it's, for me, that's a space where it's similar to what this is, really, isn't it? It's just another type of place where people can come together and share stories and grow power, I suppose, and support each other. So that's our 12-month journey of where we're up to in our town. And we're creating a CIC, so that's going to be the community business arm. And we hope eventually, with the parish council, that we can buy properties and put a stop to the housing of multiple occupancy, and so that we can become ethical landlords and provide support to people in the area, and then reinvest that money back into where we live and pay decent wages and cooperatives and all that malarkey. So and then in 10 years I'm retiring in the camper van. so that's our little story that I've shared with you. So anything that, any reflections or any questions or any clarifications, or the floor is yours. Do join in.
You said something about the 7 principles of, was it neighbourhood?
Yeah, the 7 functions of...
Functions, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Which are kind of like caring for each other, our local ecology, keeping each other safe, educating each other, keeping each other healthy. I mean, I can share them, I can give you something with them on. They were developed, like asset-based community development grew out of community organising, and it was John McKnight and Geordie travelled, I think, to about 300 cities in the 80s in America, and they looked at what keeps people well, and it was what they saw being enacted all the time with these 7 functions of community that we've given up or had taken off us. But I'll post those here for you. In fact, I've got a cracking little book. I'll dig out and I'll put it in. I'll put it in chat.
Would you like to move to Morley, where I live? Start again.
Where's that, Morley?
Yeah.
Is that
Morley.
Leeds? I know
Yeah, yeah,
people in Leeds, actually. I mean, you've
yeah.
had,
No, but where I live, it's sort of all the stuff that goes on. It's sort of around the Headingley area, which is the green area, and the studenty come teachery area, and everything happens there, and they set things up there. And I live in Morley, which is Brexit Central, and we have independent councillors, except they're actually Tories.
right.
But everyone thinks, oh, I'll vote for the independent because I don't want a Tory or a Labour person in. But it's very telling because the Tories don't even bother standing anyone for the council.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like where I live, politics just get in the way now. And I did contemplate standing as an independent and looking at flat pack, and we might do that in the future. But it just feels like there's too much community building to do at the minute, and that would have sucked us into the political system.
Yeah, there's little things happening. There's sort of like community street cleans setting up and things like that, and they've closed down one of the main roads, and people are moaning about it. And I sort of said, wouldn't it be great if all the community could get together and discuss it? And I got quite positive answers, so I'm just sort of drip feeding the idea in a bit first.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I'll shut up because I talk too much.
It's lovely to hear. It won't let me share a file from off my computer, actually, so I'll have to give it to the people who organise it and ask them to send it out to everybody. So it won't let me do that.
I unfortunately cannot make you a co-host.
I think I am co-host, but it won't.
Oh, you are, yeah. It won't still let you share.
It won't let me upload a document off my computer. It will only let me do one from Dropbox or somewhere. So I'll have to send it out to you. Yeah. Has there anybody else got anything that you want to kind of add or say or ask?
I'd love to congratulate you. It's fantastic.
Sophie, do you want to say something?
Sorry, yeah, this all sounds really exciting and amazing how much you've done in a year. And I suppose I was just thinking, it seems like you've got loads of great ideas for taking it forward. And do you think the momentum will keep going and that you've got enough people to keep things happening?
I think so, because what we've noticed, I think where we saw like models of mutual aid that were very much around helper and helped, then they seem to have kind of fallen by the wayside. But we've tried to grow this culture of everybody doing things, and people seem to quite find that it gives them a sense of belonging. And so we seem to be getting more and more people. But there comes a point of like how much you can do when it's not your job.
Yeah.
And I set my own business up like a few years ago, and so the money I get for the workshops that I do in my own business allows me to show up in where I live for a couple of days a week. And then a friend who I used to work with, my business got another contract, so she took a risk and has come and joined me. And I think we're getting to this stage. We've just got awards for our money, which will take us through till September. But we're coming to the stage now where we're going to need some salaries. And that's the next bit. Because I think the longer term idea for us is to like kind of use the salaries to create the community business sides of it, so that will eventually become sustainable. Cooperatives around, particularly, I'd like to explore community alternatives to foster care placements, and I think we can do that. And we've got people who've got the skills to be able to do it here. So that's one of the businesses that I hope that we, with a bit of funding, maybe 3 or 4 year funding, that will match. Our council signed a 10-year contract to this awful private provider of foster placement, and that's our exit strategy, is to be ready for that contract to come to an end and then we can take it and bring the money home.
Do you know what I'd love? To have an old people's home
Yeah.
right next to the children's home. So the kids may not have parents, but they've got grandparents.
Yeah.
And hopefully have land there, and they can maybe have chickens or something as well. So there's just life there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got such great memories of grandparents. I was really, really lucky, and it makes me really frustrated to hear all this, like, we need loads more counsellors in school. And I'm like, no, we don't. We've got this loneliness epidemic, all these latent skills and gifts sat in houses that could be alongside children. What we need is communities to just connect again, and we need universal basic income to enable that, you know, so that we can actually work less and care more, and that in itself will give us the economy that we want, really, won't it? We can look after our environment, we can look after our people, we can look after our place. It's really possible. Blinking hard work though, isn't it? Because them up there don't want.
Yes.
But it is possible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Really inspiring.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question, Sophie. We do need resource. We're nearly at the end of where we can do it under the steam that we've got.
There's always a danger though that once there's salaried people sort of step back.
Yeah, I know. That's the which I think is where we need to build a cooperative, so it's not a salary person. You know, I think we need to say this is how we do things around here, but that is a risk, isn't it, when you move from kind of doing it just from here, but doing it from here and needing to pay your bills.
Yeah, you kind of need, you don't want a salaried person, you want a fund of money and say, look, we do need someone to do the accounts at the end of the year, so we will employ someone to do that for a couple of hours, or you know, stuff like that, sort of smile.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I
will
will send that John McKnight's 7 Functions of Community, it is, but I will send that document over to Jess for her to let you have.
Yeah,
if you want to have a look
I'll message